Hello and welcome to another episode of Data Cleaning Hacks brought to you by the Learning Trust as part of the Mail Series training offer. Today we talk about data or record duplication. This describes a situation when you inadvertently capture information about the same entity multiple times instead of updating a single record. Of course, data duplication is a problem. Ideally, every record in a dataset should represent a single unique entity. Duplicates may be caused by multiple factors, including the lack of unique identifiers, the lack of validation checks, and integrity constraints at the point of data collection, and also data entry errors. See here an example of data duplication. The unique identifier FCF20002 Aiden Thomas is appearing more than once in this dataset. If you check closely at all the data points referenced for row 1 and row 2, they are all the same, thus constituting duplication. There are two types of duplicates: full duplicates and partial duplicates. Full duplicates occur when an entire record is identical to another record in your dataset. The example of Aiden Thomas I showed you in the previous slide is a typical case of a complete duplicate. And then we have partial duplicates, which occurs when part of your record is identical to another record or set of records in your dataset. If you are getting started identifying duplicates, Excel contains built-in capabilities for detecting this. First, select the range of data that you want to check for duplicates. In this case, we pick the column participant ID, since we assume this is a unique student identifier. And then, under the Home tab, in the ribbon menu, we click Conditional Formatting in the Styles group. And then we click Highlight Cells rule. We pick Duplicate Values. In the Duplicate Values dialog box, choose the formatting option that you want to highlight the duplicates. We leave, in our case, as given or per default settings, and then we click OK. There we go. Excel has identified for us participant IDs that are duplicated. Of course, these have been color marked in red as per our settings. To visualize this better, we can use the sort function, this time of course sorting by cell color. In this case, this brings on top the records that are all duplicated. As we can see, participants 002, 014, 017, 018, and 037 are all part of the duplicated records in our dataset. Thus far, we have only been checking for duplicates using one column, the participant ID. But what if we wanted to check for record duplication using multiple columns? Well, it's slightly more work, but a doable exercise using advanced formulae combinations. Let's assume we want to identify duplicates using the unique participant identifier column and all the other data points that captures the participants' demographic details. I've of course color marked those in blue for ease of illustration. First, insert a new column next to the data that you want to check for duplicates. As per usual, I have named the new column name Duplicate Identifier. In the first row of the new column, I'll then input the text join function, which will help me take into perspective all the other columns that I want to be considered for duplicate identification. So our text join formula equals text join. We select text join here, and the first thing we are asked to set our delimiter. A delimiter is just what you prefer as the spacing between the fields that you want to be included in this formula. And then after setting our delimiter, we need to set a condition if within the formula calculation we were to encounter empty cells. Of course, we set the condition to true, meaningfully saying if we were to encounter empty columns, we'll just exclude or ignore them. And then finally, we need to select the range of the fields that we want included in that formula, and then we close the formula since we are done. There we go. Now we have a text joined version of columns A to H. And as per usual, we will drag this formula so that it can follow for the rest of the fields. If you remember earlier, now that we have one field that is text joined, we can now go to the conditional formatting and highlight sales rules, and we'll say we want to identify duplicate values, and we set the conditions as per default settings, then we click OK. Now, there we go. We now have our duplicate identifiers, or rather our duplicates are color marked in red. If you recall earlier in our illustration, Aiden Thomas, which is participant 002, was identified as a duplicate. But now it is not. And if you recall earlier, we only had selected participant ID for identifying duplicate. But once we included other columns, we actually noticed that there possibly could be a difference between row number 2 and row number 3, where we have two Aiden Thomases appearing. And if you check closely at these fields, you realize that while these participants have the same participant ID, the same name, the same enrollment here, the actual difference is on the province where they come from. So there is a possibility that these learners might be coming from two different provinces and could be referring to two different learners. From time to time, you might actually want to utilize the multiple duplicate identifier that is taking into consideration several fields instead of using one, for you to come to a decision whether to delete the duplicate or to actually keep certain records within your data. With your data cleared of duplicates, hopefully, you are now one step closer to analyzing your data. See you in the next data cleaning hack.